Tonight, Student Activities Board and MLK Week are presenting Frequency, spoken word poet. I'm so excited. Thank you guys all for coming. So Frequency is a Black gender renegade nomadic humanoid who self-identifies as masculine off-center, femme adjacent, and anti and or pretty boy. An internationally known poet and storyteller, Frequency frequently dabbles in what they've termed chaos collaging and Kyoto making, traditional gonyi, sorry if I said that wrong, basket weaving as modalities of creative self-care. All their work integrates and occupies the in-between spaces of gender and geography while exploring the mundane, nuanced, and stark contradictions of everyday existence under radicalized capitalism. The 2018 Woman of the World Poetry Slam champion, they are also the founder and a collective member of Panzia Sati Kenya, a fundraiser with the Trans and Queer Solidarity Fund Kenya, which is looking for monthly donors to support the Oshanye and LGBTQ plus Kenyans for a 1 year period of time with as little as $5 per month. And the founder of Conservate, a multi-pronged creative collaboration between 20 community-based artists interested in having intentional conversations to catalyze. Woo! So everyone, thank you so much for coming. Feel free to follow SAB on Instagram to keep in the loop of events we're doing. It's at Ithaca SAB on Instagram. And Frequency, let's get started. A little round of applause.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry that that bio was not sent to you earlier. And I noticed as you're reading, I was like, you know what? Yeah, those are not words I would want to encounter for the first time as I was doing a live reading. So I apologize for that. But just to clarify any of the things that you were saying, a kyondo is, let me see if I have an example anywhere. It's a woven basket that's traditionally done by the Kikuyu people, which is where my mom's side is from. And I really got into it probably like 2 years ago. My grandmother taught me, and I realized that it was something that was really helpful for me in terms of like keeping my own sanity together, as well as collaging. And then racialized capitalism, not radicalized capitalism. Racialized capitalism, you guys, they're very similarly spelled, so don't even stress that. But racialized capitalism, referring to the structure that we find ourselves in, that's not just capitalism that is predicated on anti-Blackness in order to live, in order to continue to exist in the way that it's existed. I'm also the founder of Paza Sauti Kenya. Paza Sauti means raise your voice in Kiswahili, which is one of the official languages of Kenya. And it's just a collective of artists and activists who are there. And conversate is the last one. Conversate is a word that like 10 years ago, it wasn't a word. And somebody told that to me because I used to use it all the time. They'd be like, that's not a word. And then Urban Dictionary made it a word, and now it's a word. And I think it's just one of those things that is really powerful. But there's a phrase that I often say that says words create worlds. And I don't think we think about often the creation of words and how we bring things into existence through language. So conversate is something like Black folks have been saying for a really, really long time. And then now all of a sudden it is a quote unquote official word. You can find it in dictionaries and in different places. So that project is really around legitimizing forms of connectivity and growth and learning that Black people have been doing forever, but have been delegitimized by structures of whiteness that are now turning around and trying to co-opt them in different kinds of ways. So that project will eventually also be a podcast, so you all stay tuned and we will get out to that. I would like to start, so many poems, so many, this pandemic, I think, was so unexpected. I was telling the folks before anybody logged on that I was in the middle of a year-long tour when the pandemic hit. So I didn't have a house, I didn't have a job. I was just on the road, minding my business, trying to be an artist. And it resettled me and really forced me to sit in stillness, which is not something I had done for about 3 years because I had started touring. And touring can be very hectic and you just kind of have to go where the shows go. So for the first time in about 3 years, I found myself in my home for longer than 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And so much was coming up, coming out, finally settling into my skin. And So I think I'll start with the quarantine poems. Ooh, and then we'll go into the published poems, and then we'll have a little bit of space if y'all want for a Q&A at the end. And if you don't have any questions, I'll just do some closing poems. So this first one I'll do, because it's the most recent, we just had this election. And there was that youth poet who was up there, and if you were a poet after that inauguration, you got a text from everyone and their mom that was like, why wasn't that you? And I was like, first of all, have you heard my poetry? I would never accept an invitation to read an inauguration, or if I did, they probably would cut off my mic when I got there, because this is the poem that I would do. It's called 1 through 45 have lied. 46 through 100 will be no different. And it's in conversation with a piece called I Want a Dyke for President, which I will read to you all first, because I think it's a really important piece that was written in the 90s that was really talking about just how the state had been failing people, particularly people living with HIV/AIDS and queer folks, and naming the fact that we need to be able to have autonomy for to make our own decisions, and then also have the power and resources to take care of ourselves, not just to say we want to take care of ourselves, but then be provided with the things that allow us to take care of ourselves. So this is I Want a Dyke for President by Zoe Leonard. I want a dyke for president. I want a person with AIDS for president, and I want a fag for vice president, and I want someone with no health insurance, and I want someone who grew up in a place where the earth is so saturated with toxic waste that they didn't have a choice about getting leukemia. I want a president that had an abortion at 16, and I want a candidate who isn't the lesser of two evils, and I want a president who lost their last lover to AIDS, who still sees that in their eyes every time they lay down to rest, who held their lover in their arms and knew that they were dying. I want a president with no air conditioning, a president who has stood in line at the clinic, at the DMV, at the welfare office, and has been unemployed and laid off and sexually harassed and gay bashed and deported. I want someone who has spent the night in the tombs and had a cross burned on their lawn and survived rape. I want someone who has been in love and been hurt, who respects sex, who has made mistakes and learned from them. I want a Black woman for president. I want someone with bad teeth, someone who has eaten that nasty hospital food, someone who cross-dresses and has done drugs and been in therapy. I want someone who has committed civil disobedience. And I want to know why this isn't possible. I want to know why we started learning somewhere down the line that a president is always a clown, always a John and never a hooker, always a boss and never a worker, always a liar, always a thief and never caught. And so when I heard that poem in like the 2010s, I wanted to like it and feel the passion that the person who shared it with me did, but something was dislodged in me when I heard it, and I was like, it feels like that poem is supposed to be about possibility, and it still is within this container of what we already see in front of us. And so I started working on this poem, and it took me about 2 years to write. And it wasn't until this fall when there was a campaign called the 45 Lies campaign. And if you're interested in writing, I suggest you look it up. There's a lot of different writers contributed to it. But 45 Lies asked writers to choose one lie from the 45th president and respond to it in 45 seconds. And I found myself really exasperated by that ask, because I was like, 4 years into Trump, a liar is what we're just discovering about him and trying to tell people, like, really? And then that poem I had been trying to write for 2 years actually came and wrote itself in that moment. And so that piece is called 1 through 45 have lied, 46 through 100 will be no different. Or I don't want a dyke for president, and it's in conversation with the one I just read. And this is my first time trying to read it out loud, memorized. So you guys will be my test audience. So let me know what you think. Oh, silly humans, how quickly we forget. We who were once ruled by thrones and those who told us they were born to sit upon them. We the descendants of those who overthrew dynasties and decapitated.
So frequency, I'm not sure, you may have muted yourself.
Not Oprah, Ava, or even Michelle. No immigrants in the Oval. I don't care how many or which drugs they've done. I don't want a president at all. After all, what is a president but a small king? An emperor whose new clothes I cannot see. An agreement that we made collectively that we can unmake just as easily. I pledge no allegiance to America just because white men defiled it with borders and called the results a country. I do not confuse dying to vote with dying for freedom, even though they meant the same thing at one time in history. I will not beg for a seat at a table whose legs are bent backs and we dine only on scarcity. I want us to dare to dream beyond the dictates of this dystopia, to admit that the ending so many of us feared was coming came long ago and we have simply been living in its shadow. I want us to admit more than this being a failure from the start, to say that America never was great and never can be, that sometimes the rot is so deep in the root that a pruning does not breed possibility, that the only hope for a harvest lies in the fields that we sprouted from being raised and resown entirely. And I want to know why this isn't possible. I want to know why we started learning somewhere down the line that a president is always needed, that a country is always needed, that the police are always needed, that any of this has ever been and will always be needed. And I want to know how after slavery, genocide, colonialism, and all of the ways they've renamed the taking, how in the world that they convinced us that they knew how to run one better than we did or do. And I know it's sometimes hard to imagine that any of us can truly get free, but I need you to believe that we already are. I need you to believe that we always have been, no matter the master or the monarch, but only if we dared to dream beyond what we could see, only if we understood that reskinning or regendering the beast would never change a rumbling in its belly. See, sometimes I daydream I will live to see the day that a child is born so free that will hear this poem and wonder what the hell a president even is. And I believe that we can do it. And I accept that we will be ourselves in the doing. I accept that there will be disagreement, that we will conflict as we unravel our imposed inhumanity, as we realize that we have less to learn than to unlearn as we remember our collective body. And I want to know why this isn't possible. I want to know why we started learning somewhere down the line that a president is always needed, that a country is always needed, that the police are always needed, that any of this has ever been and will always be needed. And I want to know how we were asked to write to one lie from one president in one poem, as if the sum of this country's presidencies have been anything but an untruth. 45 lies, yes, but so did 44, and so will 46, and so will our writing if we do not speak to the entirety of this. Oh, silly writers, how quickly we forget. We who were once ruled by thrones and those who told us they were born to sit upon them. We, the descendants of those who overthrew dynasties and decapitated dictators. Who are we in this moment to not remember how much we've already overcome? How dare we write so small? And that's it. So yeah, I think I've just been having a lot of conversations with myself in my work for a long time about what it means to write or to be an artist and a creative, not just creating for the sake of creating or like, you know, art for art's sake, but understanding that all art takes place within a context and then being very clear about the context that we are in and what kind of art I feel like I want to leave as my legacy in this moment when people come back. And it's, you know, not an inauguration poem for me personally. So that's probably the most recent one. Oh, let's see, where else can we go with this quarantine? There's been so many different ways and places and feelings. How have y'all been feeling during this quarantine? How you been managing? You can feel free to put it in the chat, you unmute yourself, say a word. But yeah, how you been feeling? How you been managing? Oh, very meh. Me too.
Uninspired is the word.
That's hard. I remember at the beginning of this quarantine being like, you know what? You were asking for time to write your book, and look, the world just stopped so that you could write your book. And then I spent a month feeling really down on myself because I was like, I don't feel like writing right now. I feel like crying every second of every day. So I big ups to the people who feel uninspired right now, because this is a very uninspiring time. I feel like I'm holding it together with cheap tape, like that dollar store tape too, not even like Walmart or Walgreens. We were at dollar store, somebody like put gum on a piece of paper and called it sellotape. That's what 2020 has been. Well, let me read y'all this poem. I wrote this one night. It was like 4 in the morning. I want to say it was like May or June. We weren't even deep into quarantine at this point, but I think it was the night that it hit me that I was not going to see my family for a really long time in person. And Someone said, I told my depression I'm bored with her. I'm ready for something new. Someone else said, that's why I gave my depression a friend. Her name's anxiety. Ah! Y'all, this is too much. Oh, how dare you read my journal and then put it in the Zoom chat. So basically this night I was like sitting there talking to my depression, and it was like, yeah, you know, you're not gonna see your family again for a long time. And here you were putting up boundaries and trying to take, like, I was in this process in my life where I left home when I was 16 years old. Not in like the greatest circumstances. And I was really trying to figure out how to reconcile while also maintaining my own boundaries and keeping myself safe and sane and as close to the healing journey that I'm on personally, while also trying to heal things from the past as I'm trying to move forward. And this 2020 kind of ruined all that, because I'm best in person. Like, I really don't do well virtually calling people, all that. So I had plans to go visit my sister and stay with her for a month. I was going to go home and stay with my mom for a little bit, all these things. And then that didn't happen. And most of my family actually is in Kenya. And so when the whole global shutdown happened and everyone's like, we don't want no one from the US coming anywhere near us, it really made me feel dislocated in so many ways from my lineage, in a way that I think I had struggled with growing up as an immigrant, but it had, you know, I'd spent time in my 20s trying to bridge that gap. So all of a sudden it's like 4 a.m. There's a time warp of quarantine. I can't sleep, can't do whatever. And that feeling settles into my skin where I'm like, yeah, I'll not be able to hug my mom for a long time. And my mom's actually not much of a hugger. So the feeling that came up in my mind, you know, African moms be real interesting with their intimacies and affections. But the way that my mom, I know, cared for me growing up is that my mother would do my hair. Yes, we were poor. And also she would do my hair because she cared. Because I could have also just gone out there looking raggedy all the time, or like with a hat or something. But no, my mom would take the time to like braid my hair, cornrow it, put relaxers in it if she wanted to, all these different kinds of things. And one of the most intimate things to this day, doesn't matter how you're in relationship to me, that you can do is you can do my hair. Specifically, scratching my head is one of the most intimate, joy-filled acts. Like, it is something that gives me joy and pleasure and connectivity. And that night, I was just like, I just want someone to scratch my head. Like, where's my mom? And my journal was right next to me. And so I wrote this poem. It's called A Letter to My Mother. There are nights when all I want to do is collapse between my mother's knees, to cry as she rakes my scalp with the perfect pressure that only her fingertips seem to know. I want to tell her how big and cruel the world is, how it swallowed me whole and didn't even bother to spit out the bones for burial. I want to thank her for following her dreams, even if I had to choose between mine and a place to lay my head at night. I want to yell at her, to ask her how a woman so learned enough to teach has never just learned to listen. I want to cry into the soft bend of her arms, to sob so loud that she can no longer deny my lonely and my longing. I want it to be ugly and inelegant. I want to tell her how many pillowcases I've watered like gardens as I tried to go to sleep, how I wondered if my waters would grow into anything or just grow big enough to drown me. I want to tell her how I've learned to cry softly, how once a lover rolled awake at 3 a.m., recognized my muffled sounds as soft sirens, and told me they were more scared of me feeling than not. I want to tell her that sometimes I see only darkness, whether my eyelids are closed or not. I want her to feel the heaviness of my sadness, so she never again asks me if I'm okay, so she'll understand that I'm usually not, and that too is okay. I want to tell her that crying was never my weakness, that it has always been my superpower. Each tear a cape hanging from my eyelashes, saving me from my own 2 hands and heavy heart. I want her to feel the heaviness of this heart so she knows she can call me. So she knows that sometimes I won't pick up the phone to call because she will ask me how I am, and I'll have to be honest in that moment, which means I have to be honest about so many moments before that that have led me to this place. I want to stop hiding myself and my humanity the way that she felt she had to do with her past. I do not want to inherit my mother's shame the same way I did her full tooth smile, but sometimes I really am my mother's kid. Sometimes. All I want to say to her is, I wish I could have been the daughter I think you wanted. Instead, I am this being I am still learning how to birth. I gave myself the names I was once too reluctant to answer to: queer, depressed, beautiful. I want to introduce you to all of myselves, some who are literally dying to be held by you. I wish I knew more about the woman you had to be so I could understand the woman that you are. I wish I could tell you about the woman I thought I had to be so you could understand the person I've chosen instead. They say that all Black people have an intimate relationship with their hairdresser or barbers. I wish so many things, but more often than not, I find myself wishing that the salon between my mother's knees was still a regular spot I could visit to have comfort scratched into my scalp. Common sense made so much sense when it was coming from you. Thank you for not telling me I told you so when I finally shaved my head to match yours after years of that creamy crack. Thank you for letting me go so I could finally return home now. I want to tell you that sometimes I still wish I could be the daughter that you imagined to be, but I won't, and that'll be okay. And I want her to know that I too will be okay, but I'll be there sooner only if I'm able to have her there with me. I want her to shush me into a stillness as she quickly taps my skin for support and calls it a hug, to remind me I don't need to feel everything as deeply as I do, but it's okay that I do. I want her to tell me again to choose my battles and transmute her love into my armor. I want to tell her I still haven't forgiven her for not believing me when I said I was both ready to live and ready to die, for not believing that my slow suicide had sped up and finally caught me by the throat. I want to tell her that sometimes when I think of dying, I remember that my own mother called the first time I said I wanted to die a lie, and that killed a part of me that I never went back to bury. And now I am my own dead weight, past selves being carried forward. And even though I sometimes daydream about an apology I know I will never receive, I want her to know that I've already forgiven her. It's myself that I'm still working on forgiving. Ooh, these little 4 a.m. sessions are not to be trifed with. Hold on. I'm in the middle of writing a book right now, y'all, and it was wild. Books, you can like try to write a book, but like books are like low key already written and they're just like waiting for you to like accept what it is that they're about. And come to find out, my entire book is literally just like a letter to my mom. That is just like, I do think you want to know me, and I think I'm ready to be known. And a lot of it actually just has to do with like my gender journey and how I felt such displacement from my body and my story and my family, especially because in traditional culture, there's so much genderizing. There's so much genderizing that goes on. And I had a really abrupt switch in my life where like, for most of my life, everybody thought I was a boy. I had a brother who is like a year and a half older than me, and everybody thought we were twin boys. And I was like, bet, this is great. Nobody had a problem with it. And then like puberty happened, and it was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And then everybody started to have all of these wild expectations around what I would do, how I would show up. And I was just like really bad at being a girl. But I tried, I really, really tried. So if it's cool with y'all, I can read y'all excerpts from my upcoming manuscript. These I have really not read anywhere before. So, if you find me crying, that's why. And yeah, if you don't like them, you should just keep that to yourself, because I'm too tender for negative feedback right now. So this one, it's a series, it's an ungenred and anti-disciplinary project. So I am a poet, but there's like collages, there's writing, there's photos, there's all kinds of things that are in there. And this is an entry called Part 5, Skeletons Outside the Closet. So I'll just pick random entries, and hopefully that you guys will be able to be interested enough in buying the book when it comes out. So Part 5, Skeleton Outside the Closet. 1. I sometimes skeleton myself into androgyny just to avoid dealing with what they won't stop naming as femininity. A full stomach means a full body, means the stretching and filling in of my skin, means the betrayal of my reinflated breasts, means I can no longer hide myself in the hearted home of traditional masculinity. 2. One year, I wanted to be so full of myself, I could no longer deny my bones the right to be intimate with the fat that sat beneath my flesh. That year, I fed this vessel like it deserved to digest everything it swallowed. That year, I was so full of doubt, it weighed me down with the heaviness my stomach is still sometimes too weak to carry. As my size scaled back to health, I wondered if I'd ever again know what it was like to look in a mirror, wanting to see what was staring back. That year, I wished myself a myth. I wished myself a vampire, a thing blessed enough to be born outside and cry all the time, but not doing that, even though I did do that for like 3 years. This next piece, part 9, poem after reading the scriptures of our Lord, Audre Lorde. I am a black unicorn being smothered by the rigidity of the rainbow. I do not yet have a new spelling of my name. I'm just now learning the language of the in-between. They've always wanted me to be either or, but I've always been both and. This has never felt like the best of both worlds, more like the end of them all. Let me see. Sorry, now I have to go through all of them all the time to see how they go. All right, this one is kind of a story poem. I've been playing a lot with, I've really struggled my whole life to identify as a poet because I low-key like hate like 90% of poetry, like the way poetry has been like dictated to us in the canon. I like when I was growing up, my parents like scrounged, they like realized I liked poetry, like scrounged their little coins together and sent me to like a poetry summer camp. And I came back and I was like, that shit is for the birds. I hate it. Don't ever send me to write a poem again. And it's because they were doing the usual canon that does not include voices or experiences or people who look like me. And to this day, I have a lot of trouble getting published in literary journals and different things because I refuse to put my poetry in what they call poetry in order to have it accepted. And, you know, I'm really not, I don't care about the form that stories come out. I think I'm more invested in being a storyteller than I am a poet. And so this book is something that has allowed me to do that. And so if you all will allow me, I will read you, a 4-page excerpt that I believe is a poem, but you know, some people are like, is that prose, Monday? And I'm like, if I knew more about the difference between poetry and prose, I could tell you, but I don't care enough to do that. So, all right, this is part 12. Little Kenyan child grows up constantly being told that girls don't do this and girls don't do that. Eventually, little Kenyan child concludes that they are more boy than girl if behavior is to be believed, and everyone seems to believe. Little Kenyan child is told no. Just because they call her a boy named Tom does not mean she will become a boy, and this makes her sad. Little Kenyan child accepts she is a little Kenyan girl, even if she does not fully agree. Little Kenyan girl grows into bigger black girl, but still hasn't outgrown the boy she was told she behaved like and felt inside. She feels despair when her mother tells her the mosquito bites on her chest have swollen and they need to be netted. She begins to bleed and panics, tries to hide it from the world, not yet ready to sink into the waters they said would come with womanhood. Bigger black girl is forced to become young black woman by her body as it continues to betray her. Nothing fits, or everything fits a little too well in some places for her comfort. She learns to yearn for the body she once had. She thinks about trying to trick it back into being by slimming down this new one, but even when she does not eat, the weight and shape continue to come. She looks at her Auntie Washo, the one everyone tells her she looks like, and realizes she's in a losing battle with her ancestry as her body is birthing a self anew and familiar. Up until now, she has convinced herself if she believed enough, she could will herself out of this new body. But she knew better. It didn't work when she was a child. It didn't work when she realized as her mom gave her and her barely older brother, a bath that she was missing a part that he had. She spent some time believing it would grow when she got older like him, but then she did. And it did not grow. But she still wished, and still it did not grow. And then other things began to grow that she did not ask for, and she doesn't know what to do. Some of her aunties have noticed a switch. They laugh softly at each other at African gatherings, making loud comments about her hips, telling her how they no longer belong in basketball shorts. She sees some of their aunties in their wigs, their animal prints, their skin-tight pants that bellow at the bottom, and secretly starts to wonder what it would be like to be beautiful like them. Everyone keeps telling her she has already become this thing she is trying to figure out how to be, but she cannot seem to embody it. So young black woman begins to study this thing called beautiful young woman. She studies until she thinks she can pass the test. That day, young black woman gives herself permission to be beautiful young woman. She sees the way the girls who look like her on TV dress, and she buys their clothes at JCPenney during back to school shopping. She unbraids her cornrows and goes to the salon between her mother's knees to get her extensions put in. She makes sure her lip gloss is popping, that her milkshake will bring all of the boys to the yard, but nothing goes as planned. First, Kenyan parents wanted her to become a young woman, but not a young woman with a body like that, who drapes it in what others could twist into a dangerous desire. Beautiful Black girl does not understand. She has finally allowed herself to become beautiful because so many, including them, demanded it, and she is still being told she is not herself correctly. Second, she learns quickly that it is not so easy for young Black girls to become beautiful young women, no matter what they look like. She is told she dresses too provocative, told it is against school policy to wear spaghetti straps, tank tops, and she does not understand. She has seen other girls, especially the ones with the skin that does not welcome the sun, with bodies that have yet to become in almost the same clothing, and no one has said a thing to them. One day in the hall, the Cambodian boy with the abnormally large head pinches her breast and she screams at him in alarm and anger. Older Black man, the hall monitor, rushes over and scolds him for touching her body before turning her and scolding her for having her body. A white girl in her class, wearing tight pants tells her pants look like they are painted on and she starts to notice the pattern. It is not the clothing that is the issue. It is the body that is the issue. Young Black girl didn't realize the girls she considered in turn to become beautiful were the only ones who considered themselves beautiful. She realizes they looked like her, but not really. They were always a little lighter anyway. She didn't seem to see much difference, but others did. At home, she's not even the closest to the dark brown hue of her brother and father, but at school, they sometimes treat her like she's a starless night with legs. They hurl insults into her black hole skin and think they absorb easily, but nobody really knows what happens inside of a black hole, and no one seems to care. Third, her milkshake does not bring any of the boys to the yard. She cannot blame them. Most kids don't like dark chocolate, including her. She laughs alongside the Black boys as they make fun of her darkness while telling her her body is her saving grace. Still, none of them want to be seen with girls like that, including her brother. She sees how he avoids the girls who even have a hint of her in them, and she begins to resent him because she knows this means her best friend thinks she's ugly too. They call her the dark meat on the turkey to communicate desire. They tell her she looks burnt to communicate disgust, especially the Black boys who look like they have come out of the same fire as her. Young Black girl gets tired of trying to become a thing she knows she already is, but is never going to be allowed to be. Her friends always seem to see her beauty anywhere. She gets rid of the clothes she is told do not fit her because they fit her too well. She begins to wear baggy shirts and jeans that may or not fit depending on the day or how much she's eaten that season. She thanks God she still plays basketball because no one questions her sweatpants or how she sometimes leans too hard into masculinity. She looks at herself in the mirror one day and accepts she will never be beautiful to the world, so she decides to become beautiful to herself. She cuts all her hair off with scissors and smiles as she recognizes the boy staring back at her in the mirror. She is grateful her face has not changed much since childhood. She still mostly carries a face people used to mistake for her brother's twin, even as his has shifted so far from the familiar. Some days she feels so pretty she leans a little prettier in the way she presents. Some days she feels so handsome and she leans a little more handsome in the ways that she presents. Other days she cannot decide how she feels, and on those days she does not go outside because she cannot be present. When those times keep coming and start to last longer and longer, she literally starts to disappear into herself. The hollowing begins as an accidental side effect of a sadness she has yet to name as such, but people begin to notice and some of them panic. She begins to experience her second becoming without her consent. Young Black girl is now becoming sad Black girl, but she is too tired to notice and too sad to panic. She has stopped the process of becoming and is going through the motions of being who she is told she has to be, but starts to consider if any of it is worth the effort. The only ones who seem to allow her space to continue to become are her friends in her notebook. No matter how she shows up, they always seem to recognize her. They become anchors in a storm whose surge no one could have prepared for. As her inner oceans begin to sink her into a maelstrom of melancholy, her parents take away her shores. No more basketball, no more poetry, no more friends. Sad Black girl is birthed in full. Sad Black girl is losing all the spaces she has to feel, then being punished for feeling, and she does not know what to do. She feels deeply without knowing why. She feels deeply without knowing why that she must keep becoming no matter the cost, but she does not know how high the cost could be. Her parents fear the world she has come into almost as much as they seem to fear who she is becoming. The motions get harder to go through, so she stops going through them. She stops going to church when she get away with it, stops going to class. When she does show up, she is covered in a cloud of smoke and sadness that she has since stopped trying to cover up with perfume or a forced smile. Her parents panic. They remember when she was a young Black girl, and they think they can force her back into being by keeping her contained from all the places that allowed her unbecoming. During the day, sad Black girl is not allowed to leave the house unless it is for school. But at night, sad Black girl barely spends any time at home. She cannot stomach the combination of the darkness she feels inside and the darkness calling from outside her window. So she escapes each night into a life that she can in order to continue becoming. She starts to wonder if it's all worth the effort, but her friends keep telling her every night that it is. After all, none of them would come to collect her if they didn't enjoy her, if they didn't want her to enjoy her life too. Some nights they go out and party in the woods, but most nights they sit with each other playing cards, watching anime, smoking blunts, rapping and crying. She barely sleeps anymore, but it does not matter because it gives her a balance to the dying she does each day under the sun. And then it goes on for more and more and more. But yeah, so there's that one. Let me see, so many poems. Yeah, I be trying to tell people all the time, like, I really write to stay alive. And that has been a process that I've been doing since I was in middle school. And I know that because I still have some of my journals from middle school, and I'm like, dear God, first of all, you were so emo. Second of all, thank God you have a written record of all of these people you were and all of the journeys that you've kept in being yourself. And so for me, when I tell people like poetry is about a personal process, it's because if I did not have this space, if I did not give myself this space in order to do so, I would not have had enough affirmation that I was allowed to be to continue to be. So I encourage any of you, if you don't feel like you have enough spaces in your life to affirm yourself, to practice affirming yourself, to practice being an audience member who is all you need in order to tell your story and to receive it. So now we can switch tack. Oh my God, it's 7:40 already. Y'all, this is what I was trying to tell. Somebody at the beginning was like, I was asking them, do you want to do a Q&A or keep going? And they're like, you can go for as long as you want. Don't you ever tell a poet they can go for as long as they want. That's a setup for you. So I will read a couple more pieces that will just be a little more rapid fire so y'all can feel like you got like a real poetry show. And then if we have time at the end, y'all can feel free to ask me any questions or anything. If you registered for this meeting, I'll ask the people who hosted it to send me your email so I can send you some follow-up work, links to my work and things like that. Otherwise, if you have a specific piece you want to hear, please also let me know and I'll try to incorporate that. Otherwise, I'll give you all more poems that I wrote in 2020 that I don't think maybe 1 or 2 audiences have read. So I'm really excited to finally have a place to offer them. This one was written in the midst of all the stuff that was happening this summer with the continued just murder of Black people. And last time this movement emerged, the movement for Black Lives Matter, I was 22 years old. I was in college actually when Trayvon Martin was killed. And then I had just graduated from college in May that August when Mike Brown and all those other folks were killed. And so all of that was happening to me when I was 21 through 23 years old. And it was really impacting me. I was at a predominantly white institution at the time, and it was like we were having entirely different experiences of what was happening in the United States at the time. And so I ended up becoming a frontline organizer immediately after college and, you know, being in Ferguson, just doing a lot of that stuff. And then this summer I was positioned much differently. One, like I was telling y'all, I had been on tour, I was traveling, I didn't even have a house when all of that stuff was going on. I was like staying in my friend's couch, still trying to figure out how to like resettle in New Orleans. I have pretty bad asthma, and so I was not really trying to be out there in the streets because now it's a pandemic that's happening, and I really had to sit with what it means to not limit the definition of an activist or an organizer. And it's something that we talk about a lot about in movement, which is like anyone can be an organizer, anyone can be an activist, and in fact all of us have different roles to play, and it's important for us to figure out what our roles are as opposed to everybody trying to be the spokesperson. And I want to say in like 2017 I started printing these stickers, and I couldn't tell you why, but I just got possessed by this phrase that says a poem is a protest. And this is in the midst of me being on the streets, organizing all these things. I would think I was trying to remind myself too that yes, being on the streets is important. And also the way that what I was put on this earth to do is right. So I could do all of those things, but at the end of the day, I needed to do them not because I was feeling like poetry wasn't enough of a protest. And then this summer, I wasn't even feeling inspired to write, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was like, because you already wrote these fucking poems. You spent so much time doing all that frontline organizing. And again, writing is the way what I was doing. That's why all those poems are written, was because it was what I was doing at the time. And right now, I was thinking a lot about positioning and all of the different things that would be necessary for long-term organizing and to be strategic. And that's where this poem came from. That's called "A Poem is a Protest." Conveniently already got the stickers for it. All right. So, a poem is a protest. I've heard that a protest is more than a body on the street, picket signs or megaphones in hand. I've heard it's also the ones that cook and feed the centipede we become as we march forward as one body in the streets. No matter what, we humans will always hunger for more than justice. It is the parents and the caretakers, the babysitters and the aunties who stay home to protect the progeny that we will one day raise to continue the work that we will not do without all the unlearning we had to do first. It is the teacher who never needed a textbook to tell us our own history. It is those who continue to teach truths despite the spinelessness of the tattered books in their classrooms and the historians who whitewashed it. It is the ones who pray and plead to spirit, who petition other worlds on our behalfs to break chains that we cannot see but have held us down generationally. The root workers and the conjurers, the witches and the witch doctors whose mere hands have brought forth a magic we have yet to name and reckon with. It is the preachers who turn the pulpit into a soapbox, the ones who remember that God once flooded the entire earth and the fire promised next time has been searing some of our skin for centuries. Those who remember that Jesus was a table-flipping Negro, which is why he needed to be resurrected in the first place. All I know is that our salvation will be in our smiles, resistance in our rest, that Black joy is a riot, it is a revolution, it is the new world we think we cannot imagine but are already living in. Black joy is the revolution, when every inhaled breath is considered theft and every exhaled breath is considered pollution. It is the poet who remembers that this is their calling, that remembers that every speech is a spell, every stanza a small spear, a shovel, a sword, and a sheath, every bar a brick or a bridge if used correctly. As for me, I will never relinquish the sting of the bee, but I will also never stop speaking like I have swallowed the hive. Give me 1 second to get my charger so I don't just, oh, no, we on 18%. That's good, that's good. Oh, okay. This one, I encourage everyone to write a poem like this one day, which is just like a praise poem or an ode to yourself in honor of yourself. And the way you write it, right, is by thinking about all of the reasons that people get mad at you for existing. And then you just write about it, talk shit and be like, so what? Be mad, I'm still fucking here. And there's a poem, I also recommend y'all read Lucille Clifton's work. She's an amazing writer, very succinct. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not a succinct writer. That's like, I tell stories, that's what I do. But I was listening to one of her poems once. There's actually this thing, there's a poet named Alexis Pauline Gumbs who does something named a Black feminist breathing chorus. And we just sit there. I'm really bad at meditation. I'm just supposed to like sit there. I don't do that well. But this is a breathing and chanting chorus where we meditate by repeating the phrases that different Black feminist thinkers and scholars and artists have said. And Lucille Clifton was one that day. And I was just really feeling her that day. So I deep dove into her work and then was inspired to write a piece. So she has a piece called "Why Some People Be Mad at Me Sometimes" that goes, "They ask me to remember, but they want me to remember their memories, and I keep on remembering mine. So that's why people be mad at her," right? I was like, oh shit, that is why people really be mad when you have your own experiences and hold on to them. Huh. And then it got me thinking again, what are all the different reasons that people have gotten mad at me that have made me just be like, I too exist and I'm allowed to have my own existence, and that's actually what's making you mad. So, Why Some People Be Mad at Me Sometimes by FreeQuency. Because I'm fly, because I'm free, because I love like I expect you to love me back as fiercely, because I don't argue if I don't care, because I dare to speak even when I'm unsure of words, because I know that no is not a sentence, So I know that no is not a word, it is a sentence. Because I got receipts, because I'm the damn cashier, because I've been a window shopper with a brick in my bag, because I never ask for what I need, because I always get it in spite of myself, because I've always said cuz and ax, and that's exactly what I've meant, because I never ask for your opinions, because I don't pretend to care when you offer them, because I don't bullshit well, because I don't take bullshit well, because I won't be the woman they want me to be, because I stopped screaming back as their throats went hoarse, because I never cowered as their fingers formed fists, because I use whatever bathroom feels right, even if it doesn't feel safe, because I pretend not to hear you by pointing to my earbuds when you can clearly see that my headphones aren't even plugged in. Because I win, because I win, because I lose, and that doesn't stop me from winning, because I've been wrong, but I've accepted my humanity, because I've released myself from the paralysis of perfection, because I've learned to answer only to my name, because I know that I have been wrong, but wrong is not my name, because I'm not the same person on and off the stage, because I'm not the same lover as I am a performer, because I love myself enough to know the difference, because I'm grateful and full of greatness, because I've always been myself, because I love better than I fight, because I'm a damn good fighter, because I keep trying, because I'm pretty enough to take your boyfriend, because I'm handsome enough to be your boyfriend, because I'm free, because I'm free, because I'm free, because I'm so damn free, I make other people see their chains, because I know we have nothing to lose but our chains, but our shame, but our smallness, but our fears. And sometimes I be mad at my own fool self because I forget I do not write poems. I forget I am these poems. I forget I am this poem, even when I can't seem to remember the words. Ain't nothing wrong with feeling yourself a little bit one day, you know, for that next 4 a.m. session, you wake up like, what? Then you can read that poem and be like, yes, that's why, because you a bad bitch, even at 4 a.m. when you can't remember it. This next one I'll read because I need help finishing it, and each time it's difficult for me to write poems about Black death these days, and particularly because I work with young Black people, I get really impacted every time a young Black person is killed. And so this summer, almost back to back, there was 2 young Black women who were killed, a 19-year-old named Oluwatoyin Salau and a 17-year-old named Brayla Stone. And I just was like paralyzed for like a week. And I remember I was telling y'all earlier, I like couldn't write about this stuff anymore. And then I allowed myself to write because it needed to happen. And this piece came out, and I've not really been able to go back and edit it much. But each time I have a show that I feel like reading it at, I use it as an opportunity to hear it and hear the ways that it still needs to be written. So doesn't have a title, but is written on June 20th. I will never forgive us for allowing those who have survived long hurt in their short lives to be taken from us first and spoken about last. To allow them to be put down while living only for them to be put down as a form of death. To allow their bodies to sink back into a living earth as we neglect to revive their beings by at least allowing our tongues to turn to tombstones and offer our mouths to hold their histories in a way that our lives never could. Toyin, you were so young with experiences so ancient that they can only sadly be called human, but I'm tired of calling them human, because to call them human is to accept a humanity that took yours away long before it killed you and still killed you. Toyin, you said he tried to steal your jewel, but that he could not because you were a rock, a mountain, and a monument to survival. Toyin, they gave you the name Oluwatoyin, meaning God is worthy to be praised, yet somehow we of traditions that gives name to match the lives we hope for our kin, we fail to recognize and define that we were blessed with upon your birth. We chose to see you as Christ-like only after we had forsaken you, after your slaughter, after your resurrections online. Toyin, my name is Mwende. It means the loved one. When I die, I hope I will never have to ask in my haunting why they would not just treat me like my name in life or call it out in death. Question. How many Black girls received their first public praise after their death? Of the few men who did call her name after her death, how many would have called her out of it as she walked by them on the street with her proud stride and her aching heart? Do you think she could have told the difference between them and the one who eventually killed her? A wolf in shepherd's robes, a demon who disguised himself as a man of God, killed a girl named God is worthy of being praised, and confessed to his sacrilege as simple as a Sunday prayer. When we say protect Black girls, we mean from strangers. When we say protect Black girls, we mean from their families. When we say protect Black girls, we mean from yourselves. We mean Toyin had already lived through many deaths before she left her body, and still she managed to resurrect herself with her own worth without your praise. When we say protect Black girls, we mean those on the front lines. When we say protect Black girls, we mean while their lives are on the line. When we say protect Black girls, we mean that their lives are the front lines. We mean that if every cop, sheriff, and ICE agent retired tomorrow, we would still wake up to news of a dead Black girl, and we would still wake up to people refusing her the offering of their tongues as a tombstone. So say it with me now. Oluwatoyin, God is worthy to be praised. Oluwatoyin, God is worthy to be praised. Oluwatoyin, God is worthy to be praised. 2, when we say protect Black girls and Black girl magic, but we forget to include the girls. I know the magic that you speak of is incomplete. Parlor tricks that you try to impose on our personhood. It is fool's gold that is already fading. When you say Black girl magic, make sure you don't mean how some of us are put into boxes and sawed into pieces, thrown into rivers, disappeared behind clouds of gun smoke. Brayla Stone was a 17-year-old child. But in the lifespan of a Black trans girl, she was already middle-aged. Can you imagine a midlife crisis before you could even vote? An adulthood you don't get to see in life, but is forced upon you in death. The headlines read, another Black trans woman killed. But 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we buried your big sister Toyin, and everyone seemed to know at 19 she was still a baby. See, all I want to know is when I will be able to stop writing poems like this. It's how in the world this world ended, and still it left so much of its violence behind, left it bound in the bones of my daughters who, when I'm brave enough to mourn them, only hear the echo of my own bitter throat as I repeat my question over and over again. When will my daughters be mourned? When will my daughters be mourned? When will my daughters be mourned? And there I go again, asking the wrong questions. What I mean to say is when I will be able to stop hoping for my daughters to be mourned and instead save my hope for their lives. And instead know they will survive this war on the living, armored in nothing but their midnight skin and their moonlight bright smiles. And don't get me started on their little sister Ayana, big sister Corinne. They said Sandra's name, and their applause for themselves drowned out all the continued screams of her sisters that died, like learning the names of dead Black women and girls is something to be applauded instead of something to be appalled at. Like learning to protect Black women when they're all alive should be applauded instead of an everyday practice. And that is where I ended. Oh shit, now we only got 5 minutes left. Oh, y'all, this is a mess. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything they would like to say before we get to the apparent near end of our show?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When did you, obviously you mentioned you were writing poems like even in middle school, but when did you decide to actually like start reading them and being like public with your poetry?
In middle school, actually. And it's because I saw a group called Project 2050. And it was like, remember I told you, I was like, oh, poetry, fuck that, that ain't for me. But then I saw this group of young Black and brown kids, and there was like a couple of white folks in there, but it's really mostly people who looked like me. And that was important to me, right? To be able to like see myself. And then I didn't read their work. I went to a live performance of their work. And there was something about like the communication of a story, the oral story, that felt familiar and good to me. And I think I was in like 6th or 7th grade at that point, and I joined that thing the next year. And then the next year was when I read my first poem out loud. And I really, if you had asked me, I would have told you like, yeah, I've always been writing these like activist poems and da da da. Do you know the first poem I ever read out loud was about how my grandfather died, and I felt like I couldn't mourn him because I had migrated and didn't even know him anymore. It was about grief. That's the first poem that I ever read aloud. So yeah, that's when I started writing poems and sharing them. When I guess I was like, wow, I'm just too sad to hold all of this inside. Let me just, someone else hold this. Anybody else? If not, no worries. Does anyone have a particular poem or theme of a poem they want to hear or end with tonight? No? All right then. In that case, I hope y'all have enjoyed the show. That took so short. Can't believe that was an hour. That really breaks my little Kenyan heart. But I will not play, because I'm actually about to read it myself. Joy and Hope. Ooh, let's see. Joy and Hope. That might take me a second to find. And I say that because, again, really, I don't like to spend my time writing about joy and hope. I like to be joyful and happy and hopeful. I like to keep those feelings inside my body. And writing, like I keep trying to tell you, is a way to get things out. So I think I'll leave you with this piece. It's about freedom. I've been doing a lot of meditations on freedom and what it really means to be free these days. And I think this is hopeful in that it talks about like the complexities of freedom. So I hope you find it hopeful, and if not, sorry, Ben. Can you hear me? Am I back? Ah, okay. I don't know exactly where you left off, but I'll read this last piece. It's called Lettering Freedom. And I hope it leaves you on the inspiring note that Ben would like. And if not, Ben, my bad, homie. Y'all gonna have to find a happier poet for next time. All right, so this is based on a text called Wicked Flesh that looks at all of the different ways that Black women negotiated freedom as they were being enslaved. And so I've just been thinking a lot about freedom and how freedom is conditional and how it just depends on what is happening. So I hope this offers y'all hope in the sense that we are definitely in a time of a lot of change. And we're also in a time of a lot of possibility. So I hope that we, as all of these things are happening, all these transitions, all these turmoils, that we're also very clear that we have an ability at this moment to choose what direction we want to hold it, to go forward in this world, and also to choose more complexity in the ways that we tell our stories, in the ways that we live our lives, in the ways that we allow each other to be human with each other. I really think we just need to hold more space for each other's nuances, complexities, and contradictions, because at the end of the day, so many of us are just trying to survive that we end up not being able to actually be ourselves or be human beings. So if there's anything that this pandemic at least gave me, it was space to really sit and figure out who I am in this moment, when I don't have to be anyone or anything. So this piece is called Lettering Freedom for those of wicked flesh and wayward imaginations. Freedom is audacious and audible. It's adorned and archipelagic. It is a constellation, even if you're following just the North Star. It is a practice of refusal, autonomy continuously articulated and affirmed. It is a null value that we fill with ourselves that is beyond violence, beyond healing from violence, beyond legal status, free status, all status and stratification. It is beyond permission. It is belief. It is a birthright and a death wish. It is birthing and granting yourself the wish of rebirth through death. It is beyond the laws of men and the thoughts that created them. It is a belonging pact between our bones and blood, only to be for those we choose and to first always choose ourselves. Freedom is contingent and contradictory. It changes over time and space, genders, bodies, and race. It is confounding and multiplicitous, contested. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. My laptop died. I should have known it would never make it. Give me another second and I will pull it up. on this form here. So close and yet so far. All right. All right, so freedom is audacious and audible, adorned and archipelagic, a constellation even if you're following a North Star. It is a practice of refusal, autonomy continuously articulated and affirmed. It is a null value that we fill with ourselves that is beyond violence, beyond healing from violence, beyond legal status, free status, all status and stratification, beyond permission. It is belief. It is birthright and death wish. It is birthing and granting yourself the wish of rebirth through death. It is beyond the laws of men and the thoughts that contain them. It is a belonging pact between our bones and blood to only be for those we choose and always first to choose ourselves. Freedom is contingent and contradictory. It changes over time and space, gender, body, and race. It is confounding and multiplicitous, contested yet conspicuous. Freedom claims you only as fiercely as you dare to claim it. It is carnal and caring, a colorful rainbow of experience, but mostly it is black and maroon. It defies definition yet tasks us to try time and time again. It is defiant and directive, defined only by redefinition. It exceeds manumission and control. It is both embodied and exists beyond the flesh. It is erotic and ephemeral, excessive yet always just enough. It is fugitive and fictive, fluid and fractal, a fractured future of possibilities, but it is a future nonetheless. Freedom is, freedom is, freedom is. Freedom is freer than the meaning of free that man and even women define. It is glorious and gorgeously God-given, but only if we learn to recognize the holy on our own skin. Freedom holds borders. Freedom holds borders. Freedom crosses borders like playthings and holds its boundaries firm. It is intimacy scaled. It is an inelegant indulging in the full span of humanity. It is illicit and inescapable, inevitable because it is internal. Freedom is individually sought and collectively gained. Freedom ain't no joke, and neither is saying that you want it. Never forget that freedom has killed, that freedom will kill, that freedom kills, that freedom is a kaleidoscope of death and transmutation, a recalibration of being. It is mobility on your own terms, more than escaping unfreedom. It is mutable, it is me, it is mine, it is not mine, it is ours, it is a one-way route to us. It is plural and past the promise of empire, a practice and a practical process. It is playful and pleasurably logic, but precarious when divorced from possibility. It is remade, remixed, remembered, and regenerated through generations, reproduced through reproduction. It is rarely diplomatic and never bureaucratic. It is shape-shifting and shows little concern for death in the pursuit of its own self. It is sweetly, satisfyingly wicked and self-possessed, transgressive and transcendent, tense and tender. It is the sovereign logic of self that is unruly and ungovernable, uneasy and uneven, unbearable if unpracticed. Freedom is an uneasy negotiation between sanity and imagination, where you're unsure which one you want to win. It is violent and volatile, but always worth defending and dying for, knowing that any lesser life is a death anyway. We have never needed to define freedom with our words, only with our ways of being. It is the we, it is the Z, it is the you, it is the zenith of this failed project of inhumanity. It is our zealous, formless pursuiter, and it matters little whether it ever finds us, because in our own seeking, we give it to ourselves. See, freedom knows our names. I know this because freedom named us, and continues to call us, even when we don't think we can hear. And that's it. I hope that was hopeful enough for you, Ben. Otherwise, thank y'all for dealing with my tech issues. I'm perpetually have dying technology. I don't know if you noticed that the moment I started reading, my phone gave me a 10% battery warning. Hot ass mess. But thank y'all for this, holding this space, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you for your vulnerability too. I cannot display emotions that well, so watching you just put it all out there is amazing. Thank you everyone for coming. Again, feel free to follow SAB on Instagram for more events like this. We are at Ithaca SAB on Instagram. Keep up with the MLK week events too. They're all on Engage. And Frequency, I don't know if you have anything to promo real quick, but go for it.
Yeah, I will. I'll put my website in the chat. If y'all want, you can go there to join my newsletter. I do have copies of this book, my first book, Becoming Black, which I can send out. Otherwise, if you jump on the newsletter, you can get updates about my upcoming manuscript, which should be coming out, who knows, but hopefully really, really soon. And then otherwise, like I said, just thank y'all. I'm gonna ask the organizers to just send me the Zoom registration list of folks so I can send you all just some follow-up stuff. Other than that, yeah, just find me on the interwebs.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming. Have a good night. I love your baby so much.
So cute.
So well done.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
All good. I'm glad y'all enjoyed it.
So
Yeah.
is it so weird to do it to a silent audience?
It's so, because sometimes I'm like, oh, no, you have to remember no one is going to respond back. No, assume everyone loves it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can because they stayed on the line. That's how you know. You know?
Good,
Yeah.
good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
The poem about your mom. I was like, my mom does the same things. I was like, yes, yes, the hair, doing your hair. I can't. Like when I was a child, I used to love that.
Yes. And like I would literally wait to get my mom to do my hair, and then she would spend half the time not doing my hair. Be like, no, there's still this spot over here.
I just had her the other day. I was like, oh, mom, I need some help. Can you please do my hair? She's like, if I have to. Now I just gotta like drag her to do it. I'm just like, please, I know the spot. I'll get the supplies. Like, let's go.
Move your hand around my head. Like, it's so funny. My mom also, I think I didn't realize, that's why I started calling it like the salon between my mom's knees. So I think it's just the ways that we really undervalue like women, especially Black women's labor.
Yeah.
Like it is not easy to take care of this hair and make a child look good. And so many of our moms just do it.
Yeah,
And then
especially young. When we just like, I don't want to sit down. I just want to go and play.
you tender-headed. And then so as an adult, I would go home and just assume that my mom would like want to play with my hair for hours on. It was like, what is wrong with you? That's when I was like, oh yeah, I guess that was work for you, huh?
The only like thing I wish would have been different is like if we had been in person, because I feel like I just know how many people would have been like walking and like stopped and kind of thing, because it's so hard to like get people to an event. But I feel like it's like you have one of those events where like if people were walking past, like they would have been like, oh shit, like cancel, like I wasn't really gonna study anyway, like I'm gonna stay here kind of thing.
You can't just like walk by these words and like just keep going. You're like,
yeah,
whoa, wait, did I just hear that? Let me sit down and hear it again.
I appreciate y'all saying that. And you know, maybe one day we'll be out of this COVID world. So hopefully then I'll still be a writer. And I'll still have the same email address, so just reach out to me and maybe we can make, I've been to Ithaca before. I've performed at your school before. I want to say in 2017 or something, maybe 18. Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Aw.
Mm-hmm.
It was before my time, but
Yeah.
So just know I'll come back for the new generation.
Yeah. Got to do it like every 4 years. Just circle back.
There you go. So yeah, other than that, let me get off this call because I have, unfortunately, one of my aunts, like my African aunties, her family, they had like 5 deaths because of COVID, because they did one of those holiday gatherings. So we're just all holding like space for her. So I'm gonna try to jump on the call and hopefully be able to join their little prayer group or whatever. It's so hard not believing in God and then jumping into all these African prayer groups all the time. I'm like, okay. But if you all could also send me this recording, that would be really appreciated as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time. You were awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
thank you.
Take care. Bye. Great job, y'all. Thank you so much.